Britain is in paralysis. Some 1.5 million working men and women have downed tools in the general strike's first full day. The miners' lockout enters its fourth. At Bluefields on the Mosquito Coast, the cruiser Cleveland is ordered south. The State Department prepares once more to land Marines on Nicaraguan soil. In Highland Park this week, the Ford Motor Company brings in the 5-day week. 40 years past, on this very night, men at the Haymarket in this city demanded the same. 4 of them met the rope. And in Warsaw, the Skrzyński cabinet stands at the edge of failure. This is Tribune of the Plebs, the news of the day given whole. Tuesday, the 4th of May, 1926. From London, Britain has stopped. The general strike called by the Trades Union Congress took effect at 1 minute before midnight last evening. So far as the cables that the Atlantic carriers have passed permit us to say, no major industry that was out yesterday has returned today. Transport across the country stands halted. The London Underground does not run. The omnibuses do not run. The trams do not run. The great main lines from St. Pancras, from Euston, from Paddington stand empty. The docks at Liverpool, at Hull, at Cardiff, at Glasgow are idle. The printing trade is out. The morning papers, save those the government has organized by other means, did not appear. The iron and steel works are out. The building trade is out. By the most cautious count, 1.5 million working men and women have left their tools in support of the locked-out coal miners. Some 205 unions have answered the call. The lockout is the matter at the heart of the dispute. For 9 months past, the British government subsidized the wages of the miner under threat of a stoppage. In those 9 months, the mine owners and the cabinet prepared for the day the subsidy would end. On Friday last, the subsidy ended. On Saturday, the lockout notices went up at the pithead. The miner was informed that his wage was to be cut, his hours lengthened, his old district agreements torn up, and that if he objected, he might find his own way home from the mine. The Trades Union Congress called the strike in answer. The government of Mr. Baldwin has set the country upon emergency footing. The state of emergency was declared at the close of last week under the Act of 1920. Special constables are sworn in this morning by the thousand. Volunteers, drawn from the universities, from the clerks of the city, from those, in short, who can spare a fortnight from their own affairs, have been put behind the wheels of lorries. Soldiers have been mobilized. The fleet has been ordered into home waters. Hyde Park has been turned into a milk depot under military guard. Mr. Churchill at the Exchequer is understood to be preparing a government newspaper for the morning. Mr. Baldwin has spoken to the press. The strike, he tells the country, is no industrial dispute. It is a challenge to Parliament, a thing tending toward revolution, which the constitutional government of His Majesty cannot tolerate. Such is the formulation. The mine owner's wage notice is on the pithead. The fleet is at the docks. Voices on the left of the labor movement urged the General Council to widen the strike, to call out the engineers, the textile mills, the postal employees. The General Council has not seen fit to do so. The Council, we are given to understand, hopes for a settlement and prefers not to direct an action larger than the one already underway. What is to be observed at the close of this first day is the discipline. The wires from every district report the same thing. The men have gone out without disorder. The women's auxiliaries are already organizing relief. The trades councils are at their work. The picket lines, where they are needed, hold. The country is stopped. The miners hold. The council, in its offices at Eccleston Square, watches the cables and waits. Closer to home, on Saturday last, the 1st of May, the Ford Motor Company put its great works at River Rouge and at Highland Park upon the 5-day week. The men shall work 8 hours a day, 5 days, and rest on Saturday and Sunday, without reduction, the company says, in the weekly wage. The 8-hour day is a long-standing demand of the American working class. The 5-day week, in its way, is the answer to that demand. Mr. Ford has spoken in the press of the arithmetic of the proposition. The workman with a day at his leisure shall buy the more. automobiles among the items. A workman who has bought a motor car on the installment plan, it may be added, is a workman who cannot easily afford to strike. The Ford Motor Company does not recognize a union of its workers. The service department at the works, under Mr. Bennett, sees to it that no union shall be organized. The 5-day week is granted on terms the company alone shall set. The week's other significance is that of the calendar. 40 years past, this very evening in this city, men were assembled in the Haymarket on Randolph Street to protest the killing, the day before, of striking workers at the McCormick Reaper Works. 3 days earlier still, on the 1st of May, 1886, some 350,000 working men and women across the country had gone out on strike with a single demand. The slogan of the day was 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for what we will. The Haymarket meeting was peaceable. Mayor Carter Harrison attended a portion of it and found nothing to object to. The crowd had thinned in the rain when a column of 180 policemen marched into the square and ordered the meeting to disperse. As the last speaker was concluding, a bomb was thrown. Who threw it has never been established. In the confusion that followed, the police opened fire. 7 officers and an unknown number of working men were killed. Of the 8 men later put on trial, no evidence was offered that any of them had thrown the bomb or had any knowledge of the man who did. They were tried for their politics, for their speeches, for their writings, for their associations. The prosecutor told the jury that anarchism itself was on trial. The state of Illinois hanged August Spies, Albert Parsons, Adolph Fisher, and George Engel on the 11th of November, 1887. A 5th, Louis Ling, took his own life in the cell. 3 more, Samuel Fielden, Michael Schwab, Oscar Neebe, went to the penitentiary and were pardoned 6 years later by Governor Altgeld of Illinois, who in his pardon message held that the jury had been packed, that the trial had been an outrage, and that the men hanged had been hanged for their opinions. The 8-hour day was paid for at the Haymarket. It was paid for again at Pullman, and in the long campaigns of the United Mine Workers, and in the strikes at Lawrence and at Patterson, and in 100 funerals of which the daily papers kept no record. It was paid for at congresses of the working class in Paris and in Brussels on the 1st of May, the day of the world's labor. The 5-day week of the Ford Motor Company arrives 40 years after the men who first demanded it in this city were hanged for demanding it. The settlement that comes today does not come in their names. From the Mosquito Coast, the cruiser Cleveland of the United States Navy is this day ordered to Bluefields on the eastern littoral of Nicaragua. The region, with its English-speaking Creole population and its American-owned timber and banana enclaves, has these past several days seen the landing of liberal insurgent forces under General Sandoval and Moncada in arms against the conservative government of President Chamorro at Managua. The State Department gives as the reason for the Cleveland's dispatch the protection of American lives and American property. The American property at Bluefields is the property of the Standard Fruit and Steamship Company, of the Bragman's Bluff Lumber Company, and of the banana and timber concessions held under license from successive governments at Managua. The American lives are, in the main, the lives of the men who manage those concessions. The same assurance has been given at Veracruz, at Port-au-Prince, at Santo Domingo. There were, when the Marines came ashore in 1909 in support of an earlier conservative rising, the same lives and the same property requiring the same protection. The Marines did not depart Managua until the year passed. The Cleveland, by the department's calculation, shall arrive at Bluefields on the 6th. We shall hear what follows. From Warsaw, the government of Premier Alexander Skrzyński is, as we go to air, in the course of falling. The cabinet, a coalition of the left-center, has been unable to hold its budget together. The parliamentary parties cannot agree. The Polish currency is in trouble. The premier's own resignation is expected at any hour. Such a fall is, in Polish politics, a routine event. The country has had 14 cabinets since the Constitution of 1921. And the customary response is the formation of the next coalition by Mr. Vitos of the Piast Peasant Party with the Christian Democrats and the right. What is to be noted is the ground on which the present cabinet falls. There is unemployment in the cities. There is bitterness in the countryside. There is discontent among the Polish workers, which no parliamentary arithmetic in Warsaw can address. The crisis comes only days after the May Day clashes in the streets of the Polish capital, in which contingents of socialists and communists fell upon one another while the gendarmes looked on. Several workers were killed. And there is the situation at Sulejówek, the village outside Warsaw, where Marshal Józef Piłsudski has these 4 years lived in retirement. The marshal does not speak in the same. His circle speaks for him in the columns of Courier Poranny and Głos Prawdy. The legionnaire officers of the 1st Brigade who served under him in the war remain his men in their commands. The officers of the Polish army who would be pleased to take advantage of a divided Polish working class are not idle in their barracks. The cabinet shall fall. What follows the fall is the matter to be watched. From Moscow, the organs of the Communist International have called for international solidarity with the British miners. 10 days before the lockout opened the present crisis, the Executive Committee of the International had set down in its own organs a manifesto under the title Great Events Preparing in Great Britain, a forecast of the conflict now in progress. The Red International of Labor Unions has called upon workers' organizations to refuse to handle the coal that strike-breaking ships may move and to take collections for the miners' families. The Soviet trade unions have, by all accounts, begun those collections. And from Elmhurst in this state, brief word as the broadcast closes. Eugene Debs of Terre Haute, the veteran of American socialist politics, 5 times a candidate for the presidency, a man whose name the working class of this country has known for 30 years, is at the Lindlahr Sanitarium in failing health. The years in Atlanta Penitentiary, which the country was told were a punishment for his speech against the war, have left him as such years leave such men. He continues, when his strength permits, to send out the occasional public word. The country has not yet had his last. That has been the day's report. Tribune of the Plebs, signing off.